What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 college football predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. Up next is the LSU Tigers. LSU, in my opinion, coming off a little bit of a disappointing year last year in 2024. Last year they were 9-4. I know that seems like, not a bad record, but for LSU fans, I think it was a disappointment because this team was kind of expected to be a playoff contender last year and then also like an SEC contender as well. But it was a little bit of a step back from where they were a couple years ago. My thoughts on this team before we get into the official prediction for 2025. Offensively, you got Garrett Nussmeier coming back at quarterback. That's the big news there. Last year, he looked good at times and then sometimes inconsistent at times, but I think he has a chance to have a better year compared to last year in 2024. Offensive line, though, is a little bit of a concern for this LSU team. They have a lot of new faces coming in from the portal that will step up right away, but, it's just a lot of new faces on that offensive line. The receivers look good. The running back position looks really good as well. Defensively, I like this defense a lot for LSU. Defensively, they have a bunch of guys coming back on that side of the football. They brought in a really good amount of players in the transfer portal, and they also got their top linebacker, Harold Perkins, coming back, who missed the season all last year in 2024. So with him back at the defensive side of the football, this LSU team has a chance to be a pretty dangerous team, in my opinion, in 2025. Let's now get to their schedule. Here is that schedule for LSU in 2025. And again, they were 9-4 last year in 2024, so let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for this LSU team. And of course, the first game of the season is a big one. It's on the road at Clemson on August 30th. I picked Clemson to win this game already. I've done my Clemson video already, and I did pick Clemson to win this game. Not because they're the better team, but, you just look at these two rosters. I think it's pretty dead even with the talent and everything. I think two quarterbacks here are both pretty even. I think Cade Klubnik, though, has definitely a lot more experience than Garrett Nussmeier does, but this should be an exciting game. It will be a game that does come down to the wire, but I think Clemson, their experience on the roster and then also playing at home, that could be the difference there. This is just a tough game to call. I just feel like both of these teams are pretty even. I wouldn't be surprised if LSU did win this game, but I got to go with the Tigers of Clemson in this one just because they're playing at home, and also the experience of Clemson is probably enough to win this game as well. And I think LSU, the way they've struggled in these opening games of the year, I think it's going to be 4 losses in a row, so I don't feel confident with this prediction, but I'm going to go with it anyway. So I got Clemson beating LSU here on opening night on August the 30th, so that puts LSU starting at 0-1. But then they bounce back and beat Louisiana Tech here on September 6th, so that puts them at 1-1. And then they open up conference play at home against Florida on September 13th. Kind of a tough game to start out SEC play here for this LSU team. And you're probably saying, how is this a tough game? Well, I think Florida's going to be pretty good this year. They have a good amount of production coming back on both sides of the football. DJ Lagway is back at quarterback, a guy that has already proven that he is the future of this Florida football team. And offensively, this team is going to be really tough to stop, in my opinion. But LSU's defense might be the difference in this game. It could be a shootout. It could be a low-scoring defensive game. Maybe it's close in the first half, and then LSU starts to make some plays on defense, and they give Florida's offense a little bit of trouble in the second half. They probably, force them to get off the field on third downs, and that probably is the difference. But I think it does come down to the wire. I think it's probably going to be a 4 or 5 point win for LSU, but end of the day, though, the Tigers are playing at home, so I'm going to go with LSU to get the win. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Florida did win this game, but I'm going to go with the Tigers. And then they also take care of business against Southwestern LA on September the 20th, so that puts LSU now at 3-1. Then they go on the road to face Ole Miss on September 27th. Obviously, last year they beat Ole Miss in Death Valley. This year it's on the road this time. So the Rebels will be looking for revenge in this game, but I did my Ole Miss video already, and I did pick LSU to win this game. Like I said, I think LSU has an advantage in this game, especially on the defensive side of the football. Ole Miss has some question marks on the defensive line, so LSU might run the football in this game. And then I just look at defensively for Ole Miss. The secondary might be the only strength in this, game for Ole Miss. And I think LSU, the passing game is not going to work for them. The running game might help them out. So with that being said, that gives LSU the advantage in my opinion. So with that being said, I'm going to go with LSU here to beat Ole Miss on the road. Even though it's on the road, I do trust Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback to make the big plays, and I just don't know how good Austin Simmons is going to be. I think he'll be decent on this offense for Ole Miss, but again, I just have so many question marks about the defensive line for Ole Miss, so I think LSU takes advantage of that. They improved to 4-1 on the season. They get their first bye week of the year before playing South Carolina at home on October the 11th. South Carolina, pretty similar to Florida. They're going to be a top 25 team. This team is getting talked about as a playoff team. I don't want to go that far with South Carolina, but I think this team will be really good. I think they'll be competitive in this game against LSU, but LSU does get a bye week. That probably does help them out after those first 5 games of the year, after playing Clemson in Florida and then also a road game against Ole Miss. I think they come out a little bit more focused, and I think they do come in here a little bit fired up because South Carolina getting talked about as a top 25 team. They want to shut South Carolina fans up, so I think LSU beats South Carolina, but I think it is a close game. I think it is kind of similar to last year. It doesn't end like it did last year, but it is a close game just like how it was last season. So I got LSU improving to 5-1. Next game is on the road at Vanderbilt on October the 18th. I feel like this will be a trap game here for LSU. Vanderbilt's going to be a solid team in my opinion. You got Diego Pavia who can run the football against this LSU defense, but I think, Harold Perkins, the linebacker, is probably going to watch him and, keep an eye on him for the most part of the game. And I think Vanderbilt's going to try to run the football in this game as well. They're going to waste the clock down, keep that LSU offense off the field for as long as possible. Yeah, Vanderbilt will make this a close game. Maybe it goes into the fourth quarter, but I think by that fourth quarter, LSU starts to pull away, and I think they win this one by like 10 or 13 points, so I'm going to go with LSU to get the win. But I wouldn't be surprised if Vanderbilt did pull off the upset because Vanderbilt pulled off, some big upsets last year, so we'll see if they can do that again in 2025. Next, they play Texas A&M on October the 25th. This is a big revenge game here for LSU. Last year, they got smacked in the second half by the Aggies in 2024, and that was on the road. This time, it's at home here for LSU. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a night game here for LSU, but I would like to see it being a night game here, but yeah, Texas A&M, they're going to be a team that has a lot coming back. I think they have the most returning production coming back in the SEC, if I'm not mistaken. Marcel Reed is a quarterback that can run the football. LSU is going to go up against a lot of running quarterbacks this year on this schedule, which definitely could be difficult, and they could probably lose, maybe 3 games, but Texas A&M, it's a home game for LSU. I do expect LSU to come in fired up for this one, especially after losing to Texas A&M last year, and they do win it, but I think it's a competitive game. It's a close game. It could be a low-scoring defensive game, but I'm going to go with LSU to get the win, so that puts the Tigers now at 7-1. They get another bye week, of course, before playing Alabama on the road on November 8th. They always get a bye week before playing the Crimson Tide, it seems like, every year. Alabama is a team that definitely has some question marks at the quarterback position with Ty Simpson. So, yeah, that's definitely kind of a concern for Alabama. But I did pick the Crimson Tide to win this game. Not because they're the more better team, but this is just a very tough matchup to call. I think LSU definitely has a pretty good shot to win this game. But I think Alabama playing at home, it's tough to go against them when they're playing at Bryant-Denny Stadium. So I'm going to go with Alabama here to get the win. I think it is a close game. It does come down to the wire. I know last year's game was not even close. A lot of Alabama fans think it's not going to be closer, but I think it will be. I think it will be a closer game this time, but end of the day, though, I think Alabama will win this one. I'm going to say by a field goal, so that's what I'm going to go with here for LSU. So that does drop into 7-2 on the year. After that, it's a home game against Arkansas on November 15th. Arkansas is going to have a type of offense that definitely can keep up with this LSU offense as well. So this game might turn into a shootout, but I think defensively LSU has an advantage here. I think Arkansas does make this one a close game in the first half, but then second half, that's probably where LSU's defense starts to step up. And they could be a little bit beat up after the Alabama game as well. So maybe they start off a little bit slow. But playing at home, LSU I think will win this one by at least a couple of touchdowns. So I'm going to go with LSU to get the win. And I also think they beat Western Kentucky here on November 22nd. So that puts them at 9-2. And then they close things out on the road at Oklahoma on November 29th. I mean, Oklahoma is a team that's not going to be really explosive on offense, but this is a team that I think will run the football. They're definitely going to run the football to keep that LSU offense off the field for as long as possible, and they also got a pretty strong defense. So this is kind of a battle here between two good defensive teams. So I think it's going to be a defensive game. I think it's probably going to be one of those low-scoring defensive battles. It probably does come down to who can force the most turnovers at the end of the night. So with that being said, I think LSU defensively, they are not better than Oklahoma, but they're better offensively. And also, Garrett Nussmeier is a quarterback that I do trust more than the Oklahoma quarterback coming in. So I'm going to go with LSU to beat Oklahoma here on the road on November 29th. So I got LSU finishing 10-2 in 2025. I mean, LSU has a pretty good shot to maybe go 11-1. This is a schedule that sets up pretty well for them. I know Clemson is a very tough game on the road, and then so is Alabama. I can definitely see them beating Alabama, but what if they slip up somewhere else? What if they slip up against Florida, Texas A&M, or possibly Ole Miss? I mean, they could probably lose to Ole Miss on the road, and then they could probably lose to South Carolina. I mean, anything is possible. If LSU probably goes 8-4 again, that's probably going to be a disappointment, and maybe Brian Kelly is not the right guy for this LSU football team. If they go 9-3, that's not bad, but you expect LSU to be a playoff team. But if they go 10-2 or 11-1, that's definitely a possibility here for the Tigers. I don't know if they can go undefeated, but it could be possible. But I got this team finishing 10-2, so that's what I'm going to go with here for the Tigers for 2025. Do you guys agree or disagree with this prediction for LSU? Give me your thoughts on this team down in the comments below, and give me your prediction for this team as well. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.